Former great coach of the Utah State Aggies, one of the best to ever do it, to stay on the sideline. It's Stu Morrill here joining us on the Full Court Press. Before, I guess, when you first started coaching at Utah State to the end, former players have said that you actually mellowed out a lot towards the end. Is that true? And if so, why is that?
Oh, I think it's true, and I think the nature of kids nowadays was part of it. You're dealing with a different type of young man, not better, not worse, but just different in terms of how they want to be approached and how much coaching they will take. And coaching has to be in the right form, I think, for the modern day player. And I think also as a process of, aging and having coached for a long time and all of that kind of went into it. You get a little older, and I guess you gain a little perspective. But I always thought Utah State would be my last job. I had coached it, as you know, I had coached at Montana and at Colorado State. And when I came to Utah State, I said this will probably be my last coaching job, and didn't know that I would go as long as I did. 17 years was a lot of fun and a long time to be at one school nowadays. So I feel very fortunate to have had the career that I had, and it is really a lot of credit. Most of the credit should go to all the good players I had. And to walk away from coaching on your own is really hard to do anymore. And that's something I wanted to do and have it be my decision. And there's never anything but good feelings about Utah State.
Coach, when you decided to, or when you stepped down, when did you make that decision? Was that before the year started? Was that in the middle of the year? And how did that all come about?
I announced it in early January. We'd actually won at Boise State. David Collette hit a shot at the buzzer, and we won that game. And I was really glad that I was announcing it after a win. So some people didn't think that I was just tired of it all, depressed that we lost, that kind of thing. But I had been thinking about it all for a year or two as to the timing and when I might want to do the announcement, and I just felt like it was good for everybody if I let it be known early that this was going to be my last season, and for me it just made a lot of sense. And some people thought it shouldn't have been done till the end of the year, but as the old song says, sometimes you get to do it my way, and that's what I was able to do.
Did your players know before the season, or did they not know until you announced it?
That's one thing I regret. As you have alluded to off air, I'm not the most technological savvy guy in America, and so I planned on telling my players before practice, before it was really out there, and it got out that morning, and they were a little perturbed that I hadn't told them because we had already moved ahead on it, and I explained to them what had happened, and they were great about it. But yeah, it's not something that you want to put out there too early. You just want to do it when you're going to do it.
What's retirement life like now for you? What is Coach Morrill doing? I mean, you rock climbing? Are you?
People ask me all the time, what are you doing in retirement? And I just look at them, and most times I say this, Ajay, I say I'm doing whatever I want. And that's the freedom of retirement. You can get up every day and plan your day or not plan your day and decide what you're going to do. The reason we moved back to Colorado was 3 of my 4 kids are here, and we're about to have our 11th grandchild, and 9 of 11 are in this area. So it just made sense. We stayed in Logan. We love Logan. We stayed there for 3 years after I retired. And then it just made sense that we moved back here, and we're enjoying it. It's a nice place to live. It helped that we had lived here before.
Do you visit Utah often back, or you stay in Colorado for the most part?
We get there, a few times a year if things go right. For one thing, we have a son in Montana, our 4th child, and it just makes sense to go through Logan and see some people stay there for a night or two on our way to Montana. So that usually happens a couple times a year. And, and whatever brings us back, we're hoping to be here for the reunion this weekend, weather permitting. And I stress that because I I don't. At this stage of the game, driving through Wyoming and risking my life doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, it's brutal.
To me. Yeah. So, and I've done it enough times that I know exactly how it can be. So we'll see what the roads look like. But we're hoping to get there and be part of the the reunion of four, as I understand it, four championship teams, and
Yep.
two of them were ones I coached, and it would be fun to. I don't know how many of those kids are coming back, but whoever does, it'd be awesome to see them.
Well, let's get to there. 1999-2000 is one of those teams, and this was a very, very good basketball team. Ended up getting to the NCAA tournament, loses to Connecticut. What do you most remember about the season? In fact, if I remember right, didn't you guys play a nationally ranked Florida team and barely lose? Is this the same year?
Yeah, we were. I think we were in Maui playing in that team in that tournament. And it was a who's who of college basketball, and we were kind of the late add to that event. And I made the comment in the press room in the news conference before the tournament that all these teams have McDonald's All-Americans, and I got a few guys that have been to McDonald's. People got a kick out of that, but our guys played great. It helped spur us on to the rest of the season. We had a shot at the buzzer to tie or beat Florida. Didn't make it. They were, I think, fourth in the country at the time. And we won 2 out of 3 there, and came home and eventually got on a long winning streak. And we had taken about 7 new guys that season, and so we didn't really know what to expect. And they were just great kids that blended well and wanted to be coached and wanted to get better. And and it all worked out. We had a fun season, and anytime you win a championship, it is a special deal for sure.
There was something about you and winning streaks in conference play that just, blew my mind. This one here, you won 16 straight. You go to the Big West tournament. You dispose of Pacific pretty easily. You get by Nevada by 5, and then New Mexico State. And by the way, people forget how good New Mexico State was back when you were on the sideline and they played against you guys. They always brought their best when it was versus the Utah State Aggies. Yeah,
and the interesting thing is, as I recall, as we were playing that tournament in Reno, so. We're playing Reno, and we have to play Nevada on their floor, basically. And I remember the last night when we're playing New Mexico State, they were very good. You're right about that. But I remember asking the commissioner, we were nationally ranked. We had won 18 in a row in league games, and we were playing our 19th. I said, now, do we have to win this game to be in the tournament, or are we in? And he goes, oh, no, you're in. Don't worry about it. So I went in and told my team to relax. Don't feel a lot of pressure. Let's go play and have fun. And we did just that, and we won the game. And the next day we were a 12 seed, which told me we were not in had we not won that game. And it was probably presumptuous when we were in the Big West at that time to think we would be in. But when you're nationally ranked and you have that kind of winning streak, you kind of think you might be, but we wouldn't have been, and a credit to those guys that we were able to win our 19th straight and go on and face the returning national champion, the defending national champion, I should say, in Connecticut.
They had that point guard, right? Elamine or something like that?
Yeah, he was really, really good. They had a good team. I think we lost by 8, but we were,
yep.
We were in the game, and I remember Jim Calhoun saying to me afterwards, there's really no difference. I just got better players than you, which I thought was an interesting thing to say. But I think he was trying to give a compliment as best he could, and it was, it's funny what you remember, but that one stuck with me a little bit.
You guys had quite the roster, actually. You had Troy Roll, who was a senior at the time. Tony Brown, we all know who Tony Brown is and was. Sean Dan, and a lot of this roster came back to help you guys the following season. And, Coach, that was a special season for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the main one, you guys ended up getting by Ohio State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But you also, against Utah, beat them by 1. And at home, what do you remember about that game?
We had Utah's I don't want to say we had their number, but we had some really special games against Utah, and it was one of those. I think during my time we ended up 9-5 against Utah, or something of that nature. Might have been 8-5. I'm not sure, but something around there. And the value of those in-state games, everybody knows how important they are. And I just remember that it was a knockdown, drag-out affair, and lots of emotion, lots of things happened. And I actually remember the one my first year even better. They were ranked in the top 10 in the country, and we were not very good. We were 14-13 or something like that my first year, and Tyrone Alec hit his only 3 of the year, and we won the game. So you remember a lot of things about those different teams. And the following year, you're right, when we beat Ohio State, that was very special. It'd been a long time since Utah State. I think 31 years since Utah State had won a tournament game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the years are starting to add up again since we won a tournament game, and certainly hopeful that happens soon. And some of the great teams that Craig's got and had last year and this year, and it's a strong thing when you get to the NCAA tournament to, because sometimes you don't get the very good seed, and it makes it very difficult.
Coach, I think people forget this a lot, but after Tony Brown hit that floater to get you guys in overtime, before the overtime, Ohio State had an inbounds pass that got over Sean Daniels, and the guy nearly banked it in from half court. I mean, people forget about that play, how close you guys were to losing on a buzzer shot from half court to Ohio State.
That was a heck of a game. Sean Daniels, he's a player that, because he was a junior college player, sometimes I'm not sure he gets the recognition he deserves. I mean, he was a fabulous player for us, and in my mind should be in the Utah State Hall of Fame. And I'm hoping he'll return to this reunion. I'd love to see him. It's been a long, long time, but he was instrumental in winning that game. That might have been the game where I asked him afterwards what the heck was the deal with the banked free throw, and he said, "Coach, I wasn't going to shoot an air ball on national TV." He was not a great free throw shooter, and it's interesting because only in Utah would this probably happen. But I made the comment after the game that Tony Brown made a great City League move with the triple pump fake.
The church ball move, I think, is what you called it.
No, I didn't. I called it a City League move.
Oh, you did call? Okay.
Yeah, that's the funny thing to me, is that everybody turned that into a church league move, which either one works. But with the strong faith there in Utah and the influence of that, it was funny how that somehow turned into that statement. But what a great shot by Tony at the time.
What did you remember about Tony Brown? Obviously a local kid at Mountain Crest, had a great career there. You guys get him there. What was the recruitment process like to bring him to Utah State, and his career like as a coach of him?
Larry Eustace recruited him, so
okay.
I always thanked Larry for that one. Tony was a freshman when we got there, and I went to his Hall of Fame induction a couple years ago, and we were still living in Utah at the time, and was just so proud of him. And some of his teammates came back, and just a special kid. The fact that he was local and had such a great career, made it extra special. But I always gave Tony a bad time about his ability or inability to play defense. But he got better and better, and was just a real student of the game, and figured out how to be an all-around player, and just figured real prominently in those teams doing so well during that time period.
Head coach, or former head coach of the Utah State Aggies, Stu Morrill, joining us here on the Full Court Press. Coach, we look at the 2009-2010 team that will be honored as well on this Saturday night against Boise State. This team also had a winning streak. It was in the WAC. It was 15 games, which included wins over Wichita State as well. What do you remember about this season and about this team?
That was when we had changed leagues a couple times during my coaching career, and one of the adages in coaching is, when your school decides to move up in terms of a league move, you should probably try and find another job, because oftentimes that leads to the head coach being terminated, because it's an adjustment anytime you step up a league. And we did it a couple times while I was coaching, actually from the Big West to the WAC, and from the WAC to the Mountain West, of course. And, that the time frame with that 09-10 team, we won 4 straight WAC championships, and that is something that will always be really special to me. One of them we tied for the first one, but we won the next 3 outright. We went to 3 straight NCAA tournaments. And anytime you can, in any league you're in, you can win 4 straight championships. You have awfully good players, awfully fond memories. And the WAC at that time was very good. A lot of the current Mountain West teams were in the league. San Diego State was not, but almost all the rest were in the WAC at that time. So, those teams get bunched together in my mind because, a lot of those kids were on 3 of those teams, and we just had a great run. I do specifically remember the game against Wichita State because they were nationally ranked, and we got them in bracket buster in the Spectrum, and you talk about a crazy atmosphere, and one of the all-time fun games that we're able to win. And we had during my coaching career, we had 2 at-large berths to the NCAA tournament, and people understand how hard it is to get in that large berth. And one of those teams lost to New Mexico State in the tournament and in the conference tournament, and still got into the NCAA tournament. So, all of those teams during that time period where we were able to win the WAC 4 straight times, they were very highly thought of and nationally, and it'll be. I hope to be there to see some of these kids that were on that team.
Yeah, what did you think about the bracket buster? Were you a fan of those things?
I was not, and should have been. It ended up being something that really helped us. As people who follow basketball know, it's really hard to get home games, especially if you've had success and you're a mid-major. And Bracket Buster allowed us to have some good teams come play in the Spectrum, and it was very instrumental in helping us get in a large berth, I think 2 times. So, some of those games you go play on the road, or the return game you go play on the road, going into Wichita wasn't all that fun, although we played well and lost. And, some of the places we had to return games. But the event, I thought, was really good for mid-major schools.
During this season, in fact, almost like in the era of this time, you coached some special players. J.C. Carroll was one of those guys. He was not on this squad. He had just graduated, but in comes Jared Quayle, 6'1", but averages 12.5 points, just over 6 rebounds and 4 assists. That kid is so underrated in Aggie lore because he wasn't J.C. Carroll, and he had just had to come right after him, but was such a special basketball player.
And Jared Quayle was a huge part of us winning championships and going to the NCAA. Funny story how we got Jared. He was a local kid that nobody really offered him a Division I scholarship, and he went to junior college. And my assistants had seen him a lot in the summers. He'd come over and play with our guys, and he's tearing it up in junior college. And I told one of my assistants, you need to go see him. And he came in and he said, I can see him or this other kid. And I've also already seen Jared, and, he's not quite good enough, coach, and I want to go see this other kid. And I said, no. You're going and seeing Jared Quayle, the local guy. Let's make sure. And he was sitting in my office the next morning when I arrived about 8 a.m., and he had kind of a sheepish look on his face, and he said, Coach, you were right. That kid's really good. So, sometimes you get fortunate in the decisions you make. And Jared, of course, had followed Utah State basketball as a little guy and wanted to be an Aggie, and it was one of those easy recruits that you get. A lot of times recruiting is really, really hard, but then you have the Jared Quayles or the Nate Harrises of the world. Nate Harris just, when I explained everything to him, he said, yeah, okay, I want to come. And, when you get those kind of players that are that good, that were that easy to recruit, and like I say, a lot of times they're local, it's a really fun deal.
You've also coached a lot of special big men. You mentioned Nate Harris, Gary Wilkinson, Spencer Nilsson. Ty Wesley became an All-American. I
don't know if you ever know how good they're going to be. Gary was an All-American too, Gary Wilkinson. And again, I'm a junior college guy, so you oftentimes hear me sticking up for Sean Daniels or Jared Quayle or Gary Wilkinson, because it's harder for them to get sometimes the recognition from the school when they're all said and done, because they were only here for 2 years. And, whereas Ty Wesley was a starter for all 4 years and was originally slated to go to BYU, but they kind of dropped the ball on the way they handled that. And we had told him exactly what we were going to do, and before his mission redshirt and all those kind of things. And my one of my best buddies growing up was the high school coach for Ty Wesley, and he was always trying to get us a player at Provo High School, Craig Drury, the all-time winner in state championships in the state of Utah, and a great high school coach. And we kept losing him, of course, most often to BYU, but he really helped us get Ty Wesley, and thank goodness, because his career was just outstanding. And he's still playing, as is J.C. Carroll, and a lot of these kids have gone on to have really good careers playing professionally after playing at Utah State.
J.C. Carroll has said that he's going to be retiring after the season is over. What do you remember about J.C. Carroll? What made him such an elite basketball player in your mind?
Well, I don't know that I've ever had a guy that had a motor like J.C. had. I mean, the guy never got tired. I always tell the story. He came back off his mission, and we always run the Aggie Mile to time guys, see what kind of shape they're in, and usually missionaries are at the back of the pack because they haven't been able to work out for 2 years. And JC ran a 4-something mile. It was incredible. And, I remember him as a player. I never took him out for being tired. I took him out if he got a little flustered, which he didn't do very often. And especially his junior and senior year, he hardly came out of the game. But what a quick release, an unbelievable shooter, as good a guard rebounder as I ever had. Like Tony a little bit, he had to get better defensively, but he averaged 22 points his senior year and just had a fabulous career and great athlete. And a lot of people missed on him, and we were fortunate he ended up at Utah State.
Coach Morrill joining us here on the Full Court Press. Coach, I hate to ask you this. As many successful seasons as you had here at Utah State, you had so many heartbreaking losses in the NCAA tournament. Is there one that stands out to you that you really want back so badly?
Yes. The one that'll always haunt me that I still have nightmares about is Marquette.
Oh.
We were playing in Boise. We were up in that game in a position to win going down the stretch. And
were you up 6 with like a minute left or 2 minutes left? What was it?
It was like 2 minutes to go. We were up 6, and we did a good job defensively. They shoot an air ball. Had it hit the rim, we'd have probably rebounded it and had a chance to go up 8 and run some clock. Instead, shoot an air ball that grazes the rim, falls in their hands. They score it. Now they're only down 4, and they go on to win the game. And that one haunted me. I mean, I sometimes chuckle because a lot of people say, well, and you get, the longer you coach, the more you're able to block out what a lot of people think that want to have negative thoughts. But, we lost a lot of games in the NCAA tournament, but we were playing the who's who of college basketball. Yep. We were a 15 seed or we were a 12 seed. 12 seed, we always had a chance. I think we were actually an 11 seed when we played Marquette. And we were a 12 seed when we beat Ohio State, but we had, we were playing Connecticut, Arizona. It goes on and on. I mean, the teams that we play at UCLA, the teams we played in the NCAA tournament, and I'm not trying to make an excuse. It just is a reality that made those games, really, really tough games on neutral courts, trying to beat, top 10, top 15 teams. We played Kansas right to the wire.
That's right.
When Roy Williams was coaching, and
they went to the national championship right that year and lost to Syracuse.
They got all the way to the finals that year, and Troy Roll, I think, actually had a shot to send that game into overtime that we missed, and but it went right to the wire. And they had a ton of pro players on that team, and so for the most part, our guys represented very well. You'd have liked to find a way to win a few more, and that is always something you'll feel a little bit bad about. But we did get there 8 times, and that's not easy to do.
Do you still have a little bit of bitterness toward the committee for always? I just feel like they always screwed you guys on the seating.
The seeding thing is you're kind of a victim of what league you're in and how they view that league, and how the other teams in your league do. And you always hear Gonzaga wanting, like, they wanted BYU in their league. They wanted their league. They challenge the other teams in their league to get better so that they can get better seeding in the NCAA tournament and so forth. But I don't know if I got so used to it that I just shook my head most of the time when our seeding would come out. That last championship team we had that went to the NCAA tournament, most people thought that we would be, a 7 or an 8 or the most a 9, and then again we ended up, I believe, at 12. So it's just the way it was, And when you got to the NCAA tournament, you were dang proud to be there, but it quickly changed into, let's see if we can get something done this year. And you'll always feel a little bit bad that we didn't win more games in the tournament.
Do you still stay in touch with Randy Ray?
Yeah, I just saw him the other night. They were here playing Northern Colorado. Went to dinner with him and went to his game. Unfortunately, they didn't play very well and lost. But Randy was a long-time assistant. I had assistants with me a long, long time, and I always told people, well, I let them play golf in the off season. That's the only reason they stay with me. but I had Don Verlin a long time. Randy Ray 13 years. Don Verlin was like 15 years. Tim Duryea was at least that long. Might have been 14, 15 years. So I was very fortunate. It gave us great continuity throughout the many years we were there.
I remember because I would always ask you, and I'd listen on the radio. You would always ask you about Randy Ray, and every time you get emotional and choked up, it meant so much. Some of these coaching staff members meant so much to you.
Well, you're in a very competitive profession, and it's a profession where they don't hesitate to send you down the road and bring in a different staff, and you get guys that live and die with you day to day, and it becomes their program as much as it is your program as a head coach, and that's what you want. And I had those guys were all very special that way. And Randy, I hired Randy out of basketball camp here at Colorado State. The great Boyd Grant told me, hey, there's a high school coach you might want to go watch if you got a position for him on your staff. And I went over and watched his team in camp and watched his enthusiasm and his knowledge, and obviously that's all proven out. He's been a very, very good head coach as well as all the years of being an assistant.
What do you miss most about Utah State basketball, at least your time there?
I think the thing, people always ask me if I miss coaching, and coaching was great to us and our family and all that. But I did it for 40 years, and I was a head coach for 29 years. So the coaching part of it, I was ready to be done with that. But you miss the camaraderie of, the staff, the boosters and like and trust, and, the people in the department and all the coaches you run across throughout the season. That's probably where there's always a void when you retire. But, it's retirement. I wanted to retire. I was 62, almost 63 when I retired. I wanted to retire with some time left to do some things, and we've been able to do that. Lots of travel, lots of fun, and I'm still kicking along okay. So we'll stay above the grass as long as we can.
Listening to players talk, they said some of the most best memories with you is when they'd be in the car with you one-on-one or whatever, just you and him, and you'd have conversations, and they would not ever touch on the topic of basketball. It'd be about them, their life, their family. What was it like developing those relationships with guys like J.C. Carroll and Gary Wilkson, Ty Wesley, and Tony Brown?
Well, that's the fun part of coaching, is if you can make an impact in a kid's life and let him know that you care about him. And sometimes I was so driven and quite strong personality on the court that I didn't take as much time as maybe I should have but I always tried to meet with those kids individually, and like you say, when we could just talk about what they're going to do with their lives. And that's a great thing about having a chance to come back for a reunion, is you catch up on people's lives, and you realize that, okay, maybe we did make a small difference in who they are and what they become, and they have fond memories of Utah State. And I think for the most part, kids know that I pushed them really hard, but I never demeaned them personally. I was not into name calling, that kind of thing that was somewhat prevalent at the time. But like I say, if I was coaching now, I'd probably have to be a nicer guy than that. And I'm not sure that'd be possible when I got in the heat of battle again. So it's probably good that I'm all done.
Sam Morrill obviously is chasing J.C. Carroll. When you see Sam Morrill, what makes him, in your mind, one of the elite guards in Utah State basketball history?
Oh, I love Sam. We recruited Sam. People, and this is my 5th year out, so people are like, well, how does that work? And, Sam went on a mission, of course, and I never got to coach Sam because I was done by the time he got back. But Craig's done a great job with him. Sam is special in that he has an unbelievable feel for the game. We compared him to Tony Brown when we were recruiting him. And no offense to Tony, but he might be above a lot of guys that you compare him to. And Tony was a great player, but Sam is just he's got the perfect temperament for the game. He's skilled. He's tough. He can play the 1 or the 2. He can guard the other team's best player. I think Sam will have a long career after college. And, I follow Utah State. I watch every game I can and love to see him play. They're having a great run. People sometimes get spoiled and they expected the same thing this year as last year, and that doesn't always happen, but they're still having a great year, and a lot of I think there's a lot of possibilities ahead this season, and I was one of their biggest cheerleaders the last couple of years.
Who does it better, J.C. Carroll or Sam Morrill? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Does what better?
Did you ever tell J.C. that he couldn't guard a chair? Is that true? I've heard this rumor. I want to know if it's true.
That was actually Tony Brown. I told Tony Brown that, and Tony got to where he could guard more than a chair. He became a real good defender. I was early in his career, and he never forgot it. He brought it up at the Hall of Fame induction, which made me chuckle. JC was not a great defender early, but he, again, got better and better as he went along. Sam and JC, that's a tough comparison because they're both such great players. Sam might be better at some things. Might be a better passer, even though JC was a good passer. He might be a little better defender, whereas JC might be the best shooter I ever coached. I always say that our plays that worked so well for JC when he was playing, the next year didn't work very well. Mm-hmm. He came off screens and banged it in, and so I would respectfully avoid trying to name one of those two guys better than the other. They're just both very unique, very good.
Coach, thank you so much for your time today. I know I told you only 25, 30 minutes. We went well over that, and that's because my questions, and I just couldn't get enough of that. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure and honor.
Jay, I appreciate it. It's fun to relive the old days, and I hope weather permitting we're there this upcoming weekend. Look forward to seeing you.
Well, no, we got a sold-out crowd coming. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you.